What's going on, y'all? You're back checking in with Branson Brooks with the DC voice. And today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Matt Green, co-founder of one of the most prominent run clubs in Washington, DC, District Running Collective, graphic designer, DJ, HBCU grad. Just an overall good guy, man. Appreciate you for taking the time to speak with me today, Matt.
Thank you for having me. It's a blessing to be here and talking to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. And for my first question, I wanted to ask, just to kind of get the ball running, what kind of started your running journey in general?
So for me, I really wasn't a runner long distance wise until DRC started.
Okay.
Like my background, for sports, DC native. I went to DeMatha Catholic High School in
Yeah.
Hyattsville. I was a wrestler.
Okay.
So to me, like a lot of other people, running was like a form of punishment, or it was like for me, it was like punishment or it was conditioning and losing weight.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really tied to long distance running in like a positive mindset. It was like, oh, I'm a sprinter, like a lot of people say,
Yeah.
but I didn't really get into, the benefits of running long distance until post college and getting into, creating DRC with the other founders.
Okay. Okay. And you kind of, like you talk about more of a punishment for more people. So when you were able to like kind of really start enjoying it, you feel like you were kind of just able to like more so use it as a mental health thing. I feel like a lot of people are using that more so mental health these days.
I mean, to be honest, like I would say, me and the other founders, we were all around the same age. So we were 26. Well, DRC started on my 26th birthday,
Okay.
but it was more so just to like stay in shape. Getting older, metabolism doesn't work as hard.
Yeah.
And it's like finding different ways to work out other than like going to the gym. And I think that's where the running journey started. So the mental health piece, because 2013 to now, I mean, the importance of like finding out how important mental health is to a person,
Yeah.
that's been something that's more prominent in the recent years. So I would say it didn't start that way.
Yeah.
It was more of like a fitness journey, and then it transitioned into, oh, there are benefits in mental health. And then we started speaking to that as we grown as a crew, as a collective, to like champion that messaging as well.
Okay, okay. And you kind of talk about how you was able to grow and reach different aspects of the running club. So can you just talk about the early stages of District Running Collective? I know you talked about, starting it with your friends, kind of just, you were an HBCU grad, starting with your friend out of NCAT, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
egg pride, egg
yeah,
pride.
a little bit. So let's talk about how this the early stages of District Running Collective and how those were.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it started as um, we did Midnight on Mars, which is it was a 5K for my 26th birthday
Okay.
at midnight. One of the things that was happening around running was that there was these clubs and just organizations popping up around the country, mainly in New York, where it was like creatives and artists and DJs that changed the way people were looking at running, and
Okay.
brands were getting involved like Nike and Adidas at that time. So we were looking at these folks in New York as like, oh, this is really cool. Like
Yeah.
they're expanding like the run category. And we wanted to do that here in DC.
Yeah.
So myself, Carlin Myrick, Taylor Blake, and Chaz Dawson were all like best friends coming out of North Carolina A&T. Some of them were already getting into running, or they were trainers. And we were like, yo, we need to start this in DC.
Okay.
Use my birthday as a catalyst to kind of like introduce people to it. Midnight on Mars was we did it on 8th Street. Taylor was his brother was really close with Avery on 8th Street at the time. That was like a popular bar over there. And we wanted to host a midnight run at a 5K midnight run on 8th Street. And unbeknownst to us, it actually was something that people wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we put it out on Instagram before Instagram was like really, really big. Had a great following of folks from like our HBCU network
Yeah.
to come out, and it was like over 100 people that came out back in 2013. And it was like, oh shoot, like this can be something. This has some legs. So that was like the aha moment. But fast forward to 2014, we weren't really seeing people, like we were having different events, but we really didn't see the community aspect of it. And that's when we
Yeah.
started doing the weekly runs. In 2014, that winter in February, that's when everything kind of exploded and it formed into what you see now in different stages. So the weekly runs were like the catalyst for how DRC started to have such a big impact on community to what we have today.
Okay. How was that early on when social media wasn't as, I say, big in terms of the reach you can get. I don't even think people were really reposting at the rate they do back in the day. So
To be
how was
honest,
that?
reposting wasn't even a thing.
I don't think it was.
We were still using like the terrible filters that Instagram had,
Yeah.
but no, it was different. You really had to lean on your network. So before DRC, I had another business venture with some friends from college. Some like it's crazy. I have a really big friend network that we're all really close friends,
Yeah.
but we started a business and it was a clothing brand. So we started to build like community around like the streetwear brand that was based out of DC. Then that transition to, it went from 4 or 5 years, but we still had like a following. And then we moved to doing fitness with another group of friends.
Okay.
So it was just like, I think I had already started to build like a base of people of like, I'm putting together pretty cool things. So we would use like those networks as way to, to get people to come out. And then on top of that, the social media part was just, we I had a little following, my friends had a little following, and just it was just like word of mouth. It wasn't as big as it is now for you can just put something on Instagram and we have a huge following and everybody sees it. But it literally like was this really grassroots type of movement where one person tells another person, one person sees it, or we talk about it, or when we're just running out on the street, that was our form of marketing. And as it is still today, where you see 100 plus, black people running down the street, it's like that's going to cause some attention.
Yeah.
And we were very strategic in how we plan the runs to make sure we're showing up in the places that we actually go to, like post run for happy hours or just to listen to music and vibe out. But we would have a fitness element. So everything that we do now is what we've always been doing, and that's how people got to see who we were, and it's just had this interest thing. The biggest thing now with social media is that we use is having that big group photo.
Yeah.
That's that. But we don't got to say too much. You just put that on Instagram, and it's like, what is that? You
I'm trying to
know?
get in the front of that. What's going on?
Exactly. So, a lot of the same tools we use from how we started is what we still use to grow the community today.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the curiosity of just seeing that many black faces
Yeah.
or black and brown faces that come out and run. That is what attracts other people. And then, now you got TikTok, you got videos and people sharing.
Yeah.
That's kind of like came with this new boom of folks and like a younger boom after the pandemic for the want for these like IRL spaces.
Okay.
And we just were, right place, right time.
Okay. And you kind of just real quick, you talked a lot about friends, like being able, especially in the early stages, and you guys have been going on for 12, almost 13 years now. So can you just give a shout out to, your main group of people who are able to, keep it pushing with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of people that have helped DRC get to where it is today.
Yeah.
Especially like, Ashley Green. She was like one of like the first. She was like my counterpart when in with DRC. Corey Redden, who's still a captain today, but it's like that core group of leadership
Yeah.
is kind of what propelled us from the co-founders to where we are now. And then now I have a huge team of like of my run captains, my flight crew, who's like the bigger leadership core of folks that really decide the day-to-day logistics and plans for how DRC operates. So between them and just like the community of folks from like OGs to our members to just the overall community that shows up and people that just like, share our story or come out to get a couple miles in, is, appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. And it probably, especially with the days, you have your day-to-day job and everything you have to take care of, even outside of DRC, which, as I've heard you say before, is another full-time job. I bet it helps to really have those friends that you can kind of
Oh,
lean on in those
absolutely.
times, for sure.
And let me not forget Stephanie. Stephanie is a huge help.
You gonna
Make sure
hear
I do my
some.
call
Yeah.
outs. Natalie, like I said, it's a lot of people to name, but everybody, puts in a lot of work,
Yeah.
to make DRC what it is. Because we all have jobs outside of here. This unfortunately is not in a place where it can. We have this like ecosystem of creating jobs in DRC yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully it can get to that one day, but it is a balancing act of not just myself but the other folks involved, to dedicate their time and energy and labor of love to making the community what it is. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to everybody that helped, what I'm saying? If we missed you, we still showing you
Still
love.
love you, still love
Still
you.
showing love. Still showing love. But you talked about, what I'm saying, that picture where they see all those like diverse faces and primary a lot of black faces for sure. But now I feel like DRC has been able to like become one of the more diverse um, run clubs, and not only in DC but really that you see out right now. So can you just talk about what the mission before? I know you said it kind of started off with a lot of more so HBCU grad people who attend HBCU. So what was your kind of mission from that standpoint, and how have you seen it like grow since you started DRC?
Yeah, the mission has always been one to make running cool,
Yeah,
um, which I think now is actually cool.
yeah,
So check on that.
yeah.
I
Just
mean,
a
that
little,
wasn't just us, but I think just the how the environment is right now.
yeah,
But the mission of changing the way that people look at running,
yeah,
and that's from like getting people to move, especially like in our community, of like the importance of like heart health and just fitness and cardiac health, like overall is and mental health
yeah,
is like how much it can just help you just by getting up and moving.
yeah.
So we really stress the importance of like changing that that persona, that narrative around running, not just the health part, but then like what it looks like to be a runner.
Yeah.
And it's like when you have folks that look like me, I'm tatted up, I got locks, I got a beard. I'm not like, this slim picture of like, oh, he's really fast, but showing like, that anybody can do it, whatever, it doesn't matter your race, your size, your age. Again, it's trying to get people to move. And we want to be like the place where folks can have this entryway to running. So we've really championed, that we want to be a welcoming space for folks to start their running journey.
Okay.
We're not really a walking club, and we try to promote. We want folks to build up to get into the running, but it's still like a beginner-friendly space for folks to get into it. So that whole narrative of like changing the way of like how you look at running has been one of our biggest missions since we first started.
Okay. Okay. First off, you look good, man. Talk about you weren't straight up and down. You look good. you look straight,
Thank
man.
you.
And you were talking about more so of the when did you notice like people are really starting to come out here just to like try out running, especially with that running boom that people like to talk about.
Yeah, it's interesting because DRC has experienced a couple different kinds of running booms.
Yeah.
We had a boom in 2016, and it was like a really like brand heavy boom, and that was like when we were coming into the scene with a lot of the other run crews that were before us. So we were like the younger generation at that
Yeah.
time, and then now as we going into the pandemic, there was another running boom with folks that were finding running because they couldn't get out their house. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We were like really just indoors, and folks started to find running through that. So when we came back into post COVID, we were a space for folks that had started their running journey on their own and seeing what we were doing through the COVID years.
Yeah.
Then they were coming out to DRC. And then the most recent is like, I want to say almost like the TikTok boom.
Yeah.
And that's where we saw growth in not only size and numbers, but the demographic where we brought out a younger runner.
Yeah.
And we had, college kids to, recent grads, all the way up to like, folks that have grandkids and their kids and they're running, it's this whole spectrum of like anywhere from 17 to 60.
Yeah.
We have like space for all those folks to, and then, being black is like, you can't tell how old nobody is.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's like one of
Black
those things where it's like,
don't
it's a
crack.
very health conscious, health forward community where folks everybody looks good and is trying to be healthy. So yeah, like that TikTok boom of like influencers and folks kind of sharing stories of like wanting to find these spaces to have just like real interactions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that were coming out of high school, going into college and didn't really get to experience college from like, because half of it was like being in COVID.
Yeah.
So then they didn't create the same networks of folks like we did or like I did when we started DRC. So I have this huge college network of traditions and things that was created. So now DRC has been like a place of, community where it's like people wanted to know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to just go out and go to bars and club and drink, but fitness and looking good because of social media is a big thing. It's like you follow all these fitness influencers and they look good and everybody's like trying to chase this, certain look or a certain way of like, capturing content.
Yeah.
But we were like a point of like authenticity.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's no pressure to come out and run, run with the crew.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I even saw that inspiration kind of firsthand. I'm a Howard grad myself, so even seeing, although I was kind of a little mad about it, even seeing like the Howard Run Club and
Yeah.
things like that, so y'all kind of inspiring that and seeing that, and you guys being able to collaborate with them to kind of show them like how to run a community style run club and things like that. So it really shows the reach you guys are starting to create. So that is very good to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say, did it ever get we say hard to handle at some point with some of these running booms, or was it always like welcome, more people?
I mean, I think the thing about like being able to manage and handle the boom is like having a strong team.
Yeah,
Whereas like we had enough numbers and experience of like size that it was really just, you know, scaling in a way that it made sense for us in a lot of direction, a lot of coaching, when it came to like, hey, everybody, this is what this is about, and controlling our narrative. And once you kind of control the narrative and people continue to come back and they keep hearing it, that's why I'm always yelling. I'm
yeah,
always yelling, and I'm always doing announcements, and I'm very repetitive. And that's something that I've seen from when we first started and even getting into races was that I made it a very big thing to like tell people like this is really important. You need to do this. And I would see like my captain start saying that, using
yeah,
that same narrative. And then the people they would run races and travel the world, and then they would share that experience. So it was just like you start just inputting these like little nuggets, these little gems into people that start spreading across, and then that helps manage a lot of that, a lot of the noise.
yeah.
And so it's really controlling the narrative and making sure you have people in place to help you like curate what you want it to be and don't let anybody overtake it.
Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense, man. And you kind of talked about races. You know what I'm saying? We got District 19 right around the corner. Make
Absolutely.
sure to sign up if you haven't already, for sure. So can you just talk about a little bit about District 19 and the origins of the race? As I said, I kind of did some research. I know you were talking. This is a dream that you kind of had for a long time. So can you talk about District 19 and now you guys are able to bring people from all over the country? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think District 19 started in COVID. It was the purpose was for two things. There weren't all the races that we were had signed up for got canceled.
Oh well.
So while people were running virtually and running on their own, there weren't any spaces for folks to like get out and run. It was like towards the latter half. Well, when COVID finally had like a little more, we knew what was happening,
Yeah.
So we were able to create a space for one, for folks to run safely in a race.
Yeah.
And then two, it was a form of like social protest for us around, George Floyd and just like all the atrocities that were happening in the social injustices that were happening in that moment.
Yeah.
We wanted to find a way for us to protest in a way that made sense for us.
Yeah.
And the race was like a direct, you know, vision of like how we could do that. It was like our way of like running activism.
Yeah.
So it was paying, that's why it's District 19, because it pays homage to COVID-19 and folks that lost their lives in COVID.
Yeah.
But then also it's like really a way to make a statement. That's why every race has a theme every year. So it's like we really want to put an importance of like why we're running and who we're running for.
Okay.
So that's continued to be as we're going into our 6th year with this race where it's pace is secondary, presence is everything. About like it's not about being the fastest, but it's about showing up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the role that we're taking with this year.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, it's never something I really thought about in terms of mission, especially during COVID. Like really just like actually having a stance that you guys are trying to run for and kind of protest with that. So
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Do you feel like you imagine the race being to where it is now, or is there something? What was your original goal of the race when you started in COVID?
I mean, we always wanted to have our own race. That was like one of the goals, and I think you had mentioned that when we were talking, like you heard it in one of my past interviews that we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But because we had the time to create it during COVID, it was just something that once we got the actual blueprint down, we could like replicate it.
Okay.
So I would say it was definitely, it's not easy putting on a race, but it's something that we find it important to continue building on top of the legacy that we've already started. Yeah, so we try to like we created a space for, District 19 and COVID, but after we've been doing it, going into our 6th year, we still find that it has a place of importance,
Yeah,
not only as like a race that was put on by, a black-led running organization,
yeah,
but then also like it being a true like DC race.
yeah,
DC half had just started and over the last couple years, but before that, DC really didn't have its own like DC race other than Cherry Blossom.
oh, I didn't think of it.
And you look at Marine Corps from like the long distance races, Marine Corps is more of like a military race and it's more so in Virginia than it
Yeah,
is
in
DC.
Arlington.
So we really wanted to have this like DC bred race, which then you started seeing other run crews and other from around the country start making their own races as well. And I think the goal eventually is like, how are we able to network our races together to create our own form of like racing system? And we've talked amongst each other of like, how can we build this out more and more? But it takes the groundwork to make our races popular, which is like we've doubled our numbers since last year, and it's showing that we can actually put something on of semblance and authenticity that can like stand the test of time. So it remains to be seen how far we can go with it, but like I'm very interested to keep it moving and trying to like grow the race out. But every year is something different. Every year is something new about how we
Yeah.
scale.
Okay. Okay. And just really quickly, I guess, just to kind of further explain that, what would I guess, a more run club race system kind of look like in like the simpler terms? Like, is there any way you can explain that, or still something that has to be like fleshed out in a way?
So it's something that's already happening amongst like different like black led run organizations.
Okay.
And I'm speaking mainly to like the black led run organizations
Yeah.
because it's important for our community to get out here and have space.
Yeah.
It's not that many, like you go to these different races and it's a very small population of runners when you see yourself out there. And
Yeah.
when you do, it's like, yo,
What's
what
good,
up? You
man?
know what I mean? So it's important that we can come together and like share resources and build out things for our communities. And that's why I really play a big role of like trying to like pound in that it's important that we do create these types of races that can live alongside a DC half or, in any other city where they have their races in New York and Detroit or wherever. Um, like the goal would be to help one another to grow out our own race systems where we have like our own 6 star marathons,
Yeah.
that benefit charities that help our
Yeah.
communities. So, it's a lot. We have a big buying power. We've caused the running boom. I would say people of color of culture have made a lot of brands a lot of money.
Yeah. Very
And
lately. Yeah.
it's like how we wear the shoes and how we look while we wear the different apparel. But sometimes there's a disconnect between what's important for the community versus what's important for the brands.
Yeah.
And it's our job as leaders to make sure like we're holding the brands accountable, especially when they're trying to get us in their shoes and or share different resources with us. It's like
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate of like making sure to keep them accountable in
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah. Has it been, I would say, tough to kind of juggle, with this heightened police oversight, how you guys maneuver in terms of a run club, or is just something that you have to deal with at this point?
I always, when it comes to like activism,
Yeah.
I struggle on my personal views, and then the taking the stance for DRC are two separate things.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like as the leader of it, I want to make the best decisions to make DRC inclusive and speak to a community that may not be able to have a voice.
Yeah.
So like I'm very careful about when is the right time to, protest or when is the right time to speak out on different causes. But in this instance, being a DC native and being
Yeah.
that DRC is, a DC based running organization, it's important to show that this affects us, this affects our community.
Yeah.
There's, it's hard to have to navigate safety with such a large number a predominantly black running organization
Yeah,
to maneuver through the city on its own.
which is not that big. It's not that
It's
big.
not, you know, so we're navigating through, tight, like tight sidewalks, tight streets, busy, busy neighborhoods. So then to put on top of that a federal presence that isn't even wanted here
Yeah,
to make sure like, hey, we're having conversations in our groups of like what are the areas that these folks are, that they're occupying. Do we run through that to make a statement? Do we run away from it to not, you know, to have any type of incident?
yeah,
So it's something that's like it becomes top of mind of like how you lead the organization. So not only from like speaking out on social media or on different platforms, but then it's also like how do we maneuver it physically
yeah,
to make sure people feel safe.
yeah,
So it is hard. But we do, like I said, we have a really good team of people that have ideas and resources and networks to be able to maneuver it because folks work all across. DRC is made up of like the city. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's DC officials that run with us. It's government employees. It's school officials. It's teachers. It's students. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So we're our own microcosm of DC and on its own. So when we really start pulsing those voices to see what's going on, we're able to kind of like make the best decisions for what we think is possible.
okay.
So like free DC being like a big statement that's happening right now
Yeah, I
is something
see.
that I wholeheartedly believe in as like a narrative that DRC embraces.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked about free free DC. And I feel like that's kind of more so a standpoint that DRC can kind of embody, especially with the freeness of running. So you feel like you kind of want to, I guess it's a message that you're trying to give to your runner that you can still come out here and feel safe and still run. It's kind of more than just getting a workout in and still feeling like you can still work on an everyday basis.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the whole point of what we've like created here is a lot of people come to DRC to get away
Yeah,
from their work or stresses that may, be bogging them down. So they come to this positive space and run and, get some type of like release a lot of the bad and negative energy and get some like adrenaline pumping where it's like you start to feel better about yourself, period. So I think that's the whole point of a DRC is to
yeah,
create those spaces. So when we start speaking out, like when we have our announcements and I'm talking, or at the end of a run where I'm like, hey, we do our 3 deep breaths to really like, are we ran? Like let's kind of bring it back to center. And then I try to leave with a message of like, hey, it might be hard for everything that we're doing, but we're all here together. We're a community. We're here unified. We out, we're never running by ourselves when you're running with DRC. And that's something
yeah,
that I always try to drive in for folks to know, like, this is a bigger picture that we're doing here. It's not just running. People say, oh, it's more than running. It's like, no, this really is more and it's bigger than just running.
yeah, yeah. It's like a movement, like you said. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
It's all these double entendres, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
well, it means something. That's what it's supposed to mean. It means something.
Exactly.
So yeah, so definitely. So like you said, you have a lot on your plate, you know what I'm saying? You balancing, you just talked about politics, you know what I'm saying? You balancing fitness, you know what I'm saying? You balancing your day-to-day job. As we said before, you're the graphic designer. So if you see those cool designs on the page, a lot of them are from that. So
Exactly. Exactly.
can you just talk about how you balance your everyday life and I guess save time for your mental health, even outside of fitness, just in general, taking care of your mental health?
Yeah, it's not easy, with like, my relationship, with my girlfriend and then work and my hobbies and DJing and just like friendships and family. It is hard, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's not there's no like perfect formula for
yeah,
it. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to just like embrace the waves of each thing. And as one thing kind of picks up and something else, um, might take a little bit of a step back,
yeah,
you just have to make sure that you pour into those other things when the time is right as well. And a lot of my things are interconnected.
yeah.
So
Okay.
that's the beauty of it, where it's like one thing kind of helps the other. And then the purpose for like, I might have hard, days at work, but then coming to DRC and or creating unique things for DRC, is an outlet,
Yeah.
and that'll help me inspire me to get through the rest of the day. Or I have like, my partner and she's able like to pour into me when things are hard and support me in the same way. And we go back and forth with that. So it's like one thing, it's like a never ending cycle of just like waves and being able to channel it for the things that you got to push hard on. And then get back to the things where something might step back. So you want it's this constant push and pull. So I've found different ways to make it work, but I'm definitely like a high performing person.
Yeah,
But then when I crash and I need to take my break and travel, go somewhere, out the country, I do that.
yeah, yeah. So you think it helps? I guess being able to work in be back where you grew up in terms of being back in DC, in terms of having people like probably I would assume from your childhood and just growing up. You think that helps kind of ground you in some way that you can kind of go back and reflect in those aspects?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with being like community leaders or, folks that are, leading people, it's important to have ties to the area that you're a part of, especially if you're from there. Because a lot of this is personal to me. Like I've
Yeah,
seen this area wasn't like this when I
I've
was growing
heard.
up,
I've heard.
so,
Yeah,
having that point of reference of like the city was like this and now it's this way and being able to, help build community within it and have an organization that is leaving a mark is important.
okay.
I think about legacy a lot. So, what mark am I going to leave, when I'm doing all this work and how it's impacting different people. It's the fact that it's happening in the place that I grew up in and I can share that story with people and then connect with folks that I've known since like kindergarten
Yeah,
and they come out and run or my old track coaches and, being able to, um, you know, dip into those different bags of resources to show the people that aren't from here, like, hey, this was like this before, or here's an organization that has people that are impacting folks in different ways for 20, 30 plus years. So I love it. You know what I'm saying? I love being a Washingtonian and DC native.
yeah,
Um, and I think the city has its pros and cons of like the gentrification and just overall the character of the city is what I call it. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I love being a part of it. I love being from here, and I love making a difference here.
just kind of for like a lasting question, what do you want the legacy of DRC to look like? Maybe obviously want it to keep going forever long it can, but maybe just in the more future years and kind of just going on from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the bare minimum, I want to continue the narrative of like changing the way that people look at running to get back to that and really establishing that in neighborhoods.
Yeah,
So we have our community group here, we got our run club, but it's like, how can we establish that into not just, you know, the extracurricular, but then how do we get into the rec centers? How do we get into
yeah,
DC government? How do we get into school systems and start incorporating like our mission into like the city's mission? So if we're able to like to ingrain our messaging and the impact that we've had with the thousands of people that have came through DRC, then I would call that a win to get people moving. You know,
yeah. And get people moving mentally, physically, at a young age. That's a good
exactly,
goal. That's a good goal. And
exactly.
you, and could you just say for us, what is one word you would use to describe running?
One word to describe running. Ooh, that's a good one. It's a lot of words I'm thinking of, but I would say right off the top of my head, I would say um, inspirational.
Yeah,
Yeah, inspirational. 'Cause a lot of things can come from that one little node of inspiration can cause so many different impacts
yeah.
and different in the city, in the life, and so many things. So yeah.
Inspirational for sure. That what Digital Running Collective has been to a lot of people, including, me, as I said, came to DRC, as you said, recent Howard grad. So, what I'm saying? It was inspired me to keep going. Now, some of my running in this DRC is something I look forward to every week. So, yeah, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you. I
Yeah,
appreciate you for having me. I appreciate the conversation. And I appreciate you being a part of the DRC community.
yeah, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, man. Thank you. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to District Running Collective. This was Branson Brooks with the DC voice. As we said before, this District 19 is almost sold out, is it?
Almost sold out.
Almost sold out. So make sure to sign up for District 19, and we'll catch you next time with the DC Voice.